Gently close your eyes. Do deep breathing. We'll chant Om once together. Synchronize the chanting of Om with your exhalation. Breathe in. Sahana Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavaditamastu ma Vitvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Gently open your eyes. We'll chant from verses 68 to 72 of chapter 2. Tasmadhyasya mahabaho
Tasmadhyasya mahabaho
Nigrihitani sarvashah
Nigrihitani sarvashah
Indriyanindriyarthebhyah
Indriyanindriyarthebhyah
Tasya prajna pratisthita
Tasya prajna pratisthita
Ya nisha sarvabhutanam
Ya nisha sarvabhutanam
Tasyam jagati sanyami
Tasyam jagarti sanyami
Yasyam jagrati bhutani
Yasyam jagrati bhutani
Sa nisha pashyato muneः
Sa nisha pashyato muneः
Apuryamānamachala pratishtham
Apuryamānamachala pratishtham
Samudramāpah pravishanti yadvat
Samudramāpah pravishanti yadvat
Tadvat kāmayam pravishanti sarve
Tadvat kāmayam pravishanti sarve
Sashantimāpnoti na kāmakāmi
Sashantimāpnoti na kāmakāmi
Vihāya kāmānyas sarvān
Vihāya kāmānyas sarvān
Pumāmscharati nisprihah
Pumāmscharati nisprihah
Nirmamo nirahankarah
Nirmamo nirahankarah
Sashantimadhigacchati
Sashantimadhigacchati
Esha brahmi sthiti partha
एषा ब्राह्मी स्थितिः पार्थ
नैनां प्राप्य विमुह्यति
नैनां प्राप्य विमुह्यति
स्थित्वा स्यामन्तकालेऽपि
स्थित्वा स्यामन्तकालेऽपि
ब्रह्मनिर्वाणमृच्छति
ब्रह्मनिर्वाणमृच्छति
Hari Om, and a very good day to all of you. So we are getting the deep messages from verse number 70. When I say we are getting the deep messages, it is through the process of penetration. The speciality about the yogic approach is going to the depth through penetration. Actually, you seek God everywhere. You think that God is in a particular place. It may be a place of worship, like a temple, or you think that God is in the Himalayas. When I say you're thinking that God is in a particular place, what I mean is restricted to that place. Actually, God is infinite. That supreme power is present everywhere equally. This is something which you need to understand fully. See, when we talk of the Samudram, ocean, every aspect is a part of the ocean only. If whether you take the water droplet from one end or whether you take the water droplet from the other end, they represent the same ocean only. Similarly, it really does not matter whether you're at home or whether you're in the Himalayas or whether you're in a temple or whether you're in your kitchen or bedroom and all these things. When it comes to being close with God, being close with Infinite, what matters is your ability, your capacity to penetrate and get connected with the Infinite. See, supposing you take a drop of water from the ocean. Now, you can consider it as a drop or you can consider it as the ocean also. Because it has come from the ocean only. Now, when you consider it as a drop, as separate from the ocean, then that drop of water means nothing to you. Similarly, every experience of life actually is a reflection of the Infinite, is a part of the Infinite only. Any place you take is a part of the Infinite. We can't say one particular place is more divine than another place. That is an interpretation given by your mind. Divinity is present in every nook and corner of this universe, in equal proportion. According to your level of development, spiritual development, you're able to get connected to it to that extent. If you're very highly developed, you can get connected to divinity even in small things. But if you are not developed at all, even big expressions in the universe will not get you connected with the infinite. So what are we doing in the yogic approach? We are not trying to do something special outside. We are not trying to go to some special place. I'm putting special in quotes, in order to get connected with God. Instead, we are increasing our penetrative ability so that we can get connected to God wherever we are, whatever it is that we do. This is the concept of samudram. Sometimes you have waves, sometimes you have small let us say foams. I'm saying different expressions of the water, and you have small droplets. Now, if you have the perception, you can see the ocean in all these aspects. But when you don't have the perception, even if you see the whole ocean at one go, you will still make nothing out of it. So if you truly want to become spiritual, you should drop these limited concepts of God. The idea of getting into spirituality is to drop your limitations. Now, instead of dropping your limitations, what you generally do, when I say you, I mean the mind, what the mind does is, instead of dropping its limitations, it tries to impose its limitation on God in the spiritual path also. So that is when you get into various judgments. You form judgments, this is spiritual, this is not spiritual, this is divine, this is not divine. Who's saying all this? It is your own mind, the interpretation. So if you truly want to absorb the message given in this verse, you have to absorb the energy behind this example of samudram. And if you want to absorb that energy, it starts off by dropping all your limitations. So when you apply the yogic approach, any example, any object, any experience from life is enough for you. You have the capacity, you have the ability to penetrate, meditate, go deep and get connected with the infinite. That is why Lord Buddha, he used to give so many different kinds of meditation. I'm putting it in quotes, different kinds. Actually, meditation is one only, but the approaches may be different. So he used to give different sadhanas, meditation sadhanas to students. Sometimes he used to say, now meditate on a flower. He'll take a flower and say, now meditate on this. Go deep within the flower. Not literally, externally, obviously. He's talking of by getting connected to the flower, at the deeper level. First, he used to say, now meditate on the petals, then go deeper, deeper, deeper inside, till you get to that emptiness, to that state of shunya, nothingness which is there deep, deep within the flower. And that emptiness is the infinite. The emptiness is also fullness. You know, there is a story. A student went to a master and he wanted to know where is God. Now what happened is the guru was actually going to have a bath, you know. Now just before that, the student approached him and asked him, now where is God? Now the guru was in a hurry, but the student was not aware of that. So when he asked that question in the hurry, now the guru looked here and there and he found his loin cloth, you know, the loin cloth which they used to wear in the olden days. Now that was lying there. He said, God is in that loin cloth, and he went away. Now the student took it very seriously. See, a good student is one who has an unshakable faith in the Guru and the Guru's words. Anything which the Guru does or says is always for my good. You know, when a student has that kind of faith, trust, now that trust itself will push the student up, and it's a question of time. His purity will reveal the truth, you know, to him. Now that's what happened to the student. He took it up so seriously. He said, oh, God is there in this loincloth. So he went and sat down in meditation, and he started meditating on the loincloth. And for many weeks he did the sadhana, where he kept on meditating with such sincerity. And slowly, slowly, you know, he penetrated and he reached the infinite. He became a Sthita Prajna. Now, when the Guru saw that, he was utterly surprised. The many other students who were with the Guru, actually, they all asked the Guru, how is it, what did you specially teach this boy that he has become a Sthita Prajna, whereas we all haven't? The Guru himself had forgotten this incident, you know. So he said, I don't remember what I told him, but you know, he has done something to very quickly become a Sthita Prajna. So he called that boy and asked him, son, tell me, what is it that I told you which helped you to evolve spiritually? He said, Maharaj, one day I came and asked you, where is God? And you showed the loin cloth and said, God is in that loin cloth. Now thank you for giving me that tip, because I sat and meditated on that. And then the Guru asked him, so what was your experience? He said, when I started meditating on that, slowly, first it was the form of the loincloth, but then slowly, when I penetrated deeper and deeper into it, I started getting connected to the infinite. And when I started getting connected to the infinite, I realized that that infinite God is not present only there, it is present everywhere. And I kept on doing this tapas. That's all I did. Whatever your instructions were, I just followed them implicitly. The other students were all amazed. What does this incident teach us? God is present equally everywhere. If you have the penetrative ability, you can connect with the infinite through anything, through any experience. That is the very concept of Ishta Devata in given by our ancient sages. See, they don't exactly define God, Instead, Ishta Devata means whatever your mind can conceive, they said take it as God. Because everything which you think, everything which you feel is all coming from divinity only. If you do it with that sincerity, Ishta means your wish, You you follow the natural path, you will still reach the infinite, provided you maintain the yogic approach. The penetrative ability should be there. That's what we are trying to develop week after week. The more you appreciate these great truths, the more you will start living them. So don't look for any special object or special place thinking that going there will make you spiritual. It may give you a temporary effect. See, supposing you go to let us take even the Himalayas. If you go to the Himalayas, and it will be a great experience, no doubt. But then the moment you come back, again it's the same old thing. Your perception wouldn't have changed. So if you want to become spiritual, don't attach too much of importance to particular places, particular rituals. You may do the ritual, but don't think that unless that is done, you cannot grow spiritually. See, it should not be restrictive. You may still visit places. Supposing you want to go to a temple, yes, do it out of inspiration. That should enhance your depth, not restrict your depth. Whenever any activity which you do enhances your depth, it means that has become a sadhana. You've converted it into a sadhana. You will grow spiritually. But if any action or any experience restricts your depth, then it is no longer a sadhana for you. You will not evolve spiritually. Rather, you will start devolving. Many people do so many different kinds of worships, But why is it that they are not growing spiritually? Because all those activities which they do are not done in a sadhana way. They only restrict the perception. So even when in Ishta Devata means some form of God, if you're attracted to, nothing wrong. You keep that as a focal point. That is, you utilize that for your meditation. It will be easy for you to get into a meditative state. See, supposing you naturally are gravitating towards a particular form, like the form of Lord Shiva or form of Lord Vishnu. Let it be any or form of Goddess Lakshmi, or it could be Goddess Kali, like what happened to Swami Ramakrishna Paramahamsa. Now, you can use that to bring your mind to focus, but then you have to expand with it. You have to expand your vision, you have to expand your personality with it, not become restricted with it. So in spite of doing so many so-called rituals and studying so many scriptures and doing so many activities which are considered as spiritual by lay people, why is it that people are not getting the real benefits, which is getting connected to the infinite? It is because they are using all those activities to become more restricted. Their consciousness gets constricted to that particular concept or form or whatever it is that they're doing, ritual, or it could be even a text also. There are many people who are scholars of the Vedas, who are scholars of the scriptures, but if you look at their minds, their minds have not expanded. Their personality has not become divine. But they may be talking about divinity externally. So why is that discrepancy? It is because of this lack of yogic approach. So yogic approach is not a separate path. Please understand this. The great yogis, they call it as a yogic approach, not as a yogic path. Because when you say the yogic path, again you will view it in a restricted way. You will think the yogic path is different from other paths and all that. There is nothing like that. Whatever path you're taking, you have to apply the yogic approach in that, whether it is karma yoga or bhakti yoga or jnana yoga, or whether you do meditation. Actually, your sadhana should be comprehensive. It should have all the aspects, all these aspects. But unless and until you maintain this yogic approach, you will not be able to use those sadhanas to expand. So sadhana means that activity which helps you to expand your personality, to expand your consciousness, to expand your mind. And when you go on expanding, you will become like the ocean, the samudram. Any activity, however spiritual it may be considered externally, will not help you unless and until you learn to expand with it. You may study the Upanishads, but it means nothing. The study of the Upanishads may actually increase your ego. Oh, I have understood the Upanishads better. There are many incidents in the Puranas to illustrate this block which every sadhak faces. Sometimes certain incidents are given where a person is a very great devotee, is a bhakta, but then the ego gets into him. I am the greatest bhakta, I am the number one bhakta, I have more devotion than others. Then the whole bhakti becomes very restrictive. Oh, I am devoted to Shiva. Now Shiva alone is God. I am devoted to Vishnu. Vishnu alone is God. The moment you become fanatic, then that devotion becomes very restrictive. I am studying the Upanishads. Oh, I have understood. It becomes very restrictive. Because the very idea of the Upanishads is to destroy that limited I, expand it to that infinite universal consciousness. But instead you are using the same Upanishads to increase the limited I, increase the ego. Then where is the question of spiritual development? You say, now I'll do karma yoga, I'll do service. You get on to do selfless seva. But in the process of doing your actions, you tend to think, oh, I'm giving, I'm serving. Then the same activity starts limiting you. It limits your consciousness. You go to a master, you surrender to the master, and you get the opportunity to become close with the master. Physically also, you start moving, and then slowly you allow that to corrupt you, and you feel, oh, I am more close to the master than others. Then the very exercise of interacting with the master starts restricting you. Instead of expanding and becoming like an ocean, you start getting more and more restricted. When I say you, I mean your consciousness, and then of course the mind follows the consciousness. So a true guru is like an ocean. He doesn't, he doesn't judge anyone, and he sees whether the activity taken up by the student restricts him or her, or is he expanding with that. So if we find the student getting very, very restricted with something, then it discourages him. Sometimes, when you get the opportunity to move physically with the guru, and you start getting attached to the guru emotionally, and you start becoming weak, then he may push you away. He will not encourage that. Sometimes if you move too much away and you're going astray, he may pull you. See, there is no hard and fast rule to that. The Swami Ramakrishna Paramahamsa's guru Totapuri, when he saw Swami Ramakrishna Paramahamsa, he found that he had already reached a very, very high level of spiritual evolution. He was able to focus only on the form of Goddess Kali. He was able to bring his mind to such single pointedness. Now, he was ready for the highest experience, Nirvikalpa Samadhi. So he said, I will initiate you into that. So he said, now sit and withdraw all your senses. Swami Ramakrishna Paramahamsa was able to do it very easily, because for many years he had practiced that. Then he said, bring your mind to single pointed focus on the form of Goddess Kali. He was able to do that also. And then he said, now drop that form and get into the formless. Ramakrishna Paramahamsa was not able to do that, because all along for many, many years, he was so devoted to Goddess Kali. He had done so much of worship, he had done so much of meditation, the sadhana, and he was completely attuned to the form of Goddess Kali. And now when his guru asked him to go beyond that form, he found that he was unable to do that. He said, no, I'm not able to do it. So his guru told him, no, you have to. You can't get stuck with this. You're meant to become like an ocean. So he tried again. See, every step prior to that, he was able to do it easily. When he said, now close your eyes, he was able to close your eyes. Now do deep breathing, he was able to do the deepest possible breathing. Then you withdraw all your senses, he was able to withdraw your mind. Then bring it to focus to one point. That point was the form of Goddess Kali. All these steps he was able to do very easily because of his past practice. But the final step was almost impossible for him. So then Totapuri, what he suggested to him was, he said, open your eyes. Now I will give you a practice. But first, he took a promise from Swami Ramakrishna Paramahamsa. He said, you should follow exactly whatever I ask you to do. Swami Ramakrishna Paramahamsa immediately promised him. He said, you're my guru. Whatever you say, I will do. He said, no, but this will be the most difficult thing for you to do. I know that you will do anything else, but what I'm going to ask you to do is going to be the greatest challenge for you. That is why I'm asking you to commit. He said, yes, Gurudev, whatever you say, I will do. Yes. Now, he took a broken glass piece which was there and he showed it to Swami Ramakrishna Paramahamsa. And he said, can you just you first look at this broken glass piece? And he said, now close your eyes and visualize this broken glass piece. So Ramakrishna Paramahamsa visualized it. He said, are you able to see the glass piece very, very clearly? He said, yes. Excellent. Now open your eyes. We'll start the sadhana. So Ramakrishna Paramahamsa didn't even ask his guru why he's asking him to visualize this. Whatever he said, he was just following. And he said, now close your eyes, do deep breathing, withdraw your senses. All that he did. Now focus on the form of Goddess Kali. So he brought his mind to single pointedness. All his energies, were conserved and directed to that form. Now, he said, visualize the broken glass piece. The broken glass piece which I showed you. So immediately Ramakrishna Paramahamsa visualized that. He said, now in the mind, take that glass piece and cut Goddess Kali into two. Now this was the biggest challenge for him. But then he was so sincere, simple-minded and extremely devoted to his guru. He didn't hesitate. His guru has asked him to do it. There must be a reason for that. So he just took that glass piece mentally. The whole thing, the sadhana was at the internal level. And he cut the form of Goddess Kali. And the moment he cut it in his mind, what happened? His consciousness soared into that infinite level. He became the ocean. Now, just imagine, the great Guru asked him to cut the form of God. Because, see, as far as a true master is concerned, nothing else matters to him. What will help the student to go to the next level? That's all. So a master is willing to sacrifice anything, to do anything for the sake of the student, so that the student can become like the ocean, so that the student becomes a Sthita Prajna. So the entire focus of becoming a Sthita Prajna is in expansion. So Samudram, ocean, means expansion. So you go on expanding your consciousness. The more you expand, the more accommodative you become, you will move towards Shanti, peace. The more you constrict yourself, the more you restrict yourself, you will move away from the peace. It will cause stress within you. You will become more agitated. As I told you, it could be a form of God also. But if you become fanatic about it, that will start, producing a lot of hatred within you. You will start hating people who don't worship that form. You need to be very, very careful. Whenever you become restricted, the ego takes over. And it will start producing various negative emotions like hatred, fear, anger, jealousy. All these things will come. Whenever you expand the consciousness, the ego gets dissolved. The whole exercise of becoming like an ocean is to drop the individuality and embrace the totality, is to completely destroy the limited ego and become one with the limitless reality. So even this statement, I want to become a Sthita Prajna, if you view it very technically, it is wrong. Because when you say I want to become a Sthita Prajna, what do you mean by that I? You mean the limited ego. So as long as that I is limited, there is no question of being a Sthita Prajna. If you want to become the Sthita Prajna, then that I has to be expanded. Then there is no question of I am a Sthita Prajna. See, the I and Sthita Prajna become one. The I and the infinite, become one. Such a person is called as a Sthita Prajna externally, but that person is not going to have any ego. I am a Sthita Prajna. The moment you are proud about any achievement, then that is a limitation. So this is a small yardstick which you can apply, and find out whether you're doing your sadhana properly or not. Every day if you're doing your Yoga Sankirtan, now that should help you expand and become more accommodative in life. If you're doing the Yoga Sankirtan and you're getting more angry with others, you feel they are not doing the Yoga Sankirtan, so they are not evolving spiritually. All these divisions are getting created. Then what is the use of that sadhana? So this is a very effective way of finding out whether you're using the tool of Yoga Sankirtan or any other sadhana. Even you're watching the Sunday discourses every week. Now, if you get irritated with that others, it may be your own family members also, they are not watching the Sunday discourses, then the very exercise of you sitting here and absorbing the energy is going waste. So remember this as a thumb rule. Whenever you're doing your sadhana, apply the yogic approach and expand with it. It should make you more and more accommodative. So last week I was explaining to you about acceptance, Now this is another dimension of it, that is becoming accommodative. The world is not there just for you alone. Everybody has an equal right in this world. You should expand your consciousness to that level where you're able to accommodate everybody's thoughts, everybody's emotions, ideologies. See, each one is coming from his or her own line, A Sthita Prajna is one who sees the beauty in all aspects of life. He sees the beauty in every individual. When we come to that chapter where Krishna, he picks up different objects and different beings from the world, and he says, I am that. For example, he says, among Daityas, I am Prahalada. Among the mountains, I am the Himalayas. Like that, he gives. Now, it is very interesting. There is a line where he says, among all the vices, I am gambling. Now, many people get confused there. How can Krishna say that I am that God is there in gambling. See, that shows a total non-judgmental attitude. He is not promoting gambling, or it's not that. He's trying to expand your vision so that you stop judging. The more you see the faults of others, you will not be able to connect with divinity. Of course, last week I had explained to you clearly the difference between assessment and judgment. So here, when I say seeing the faults of others, I am talking of judgment. The more you become judgmental, the less you will be able to relate with that person. Then where is the question of seeing divinity in that person? And remember, when you go on judging others, now when you try to go within yourself, it is the same quality of judgment which you will be having inside. So you will start judging yourself also. So you will not be able to see divinity in others. You will not be able to see divinity in yourself also. Becoming like an ocean is dropping these judgments and start experiencing the divinity within and the same divinity outside also. Every expression in this universe is an expression of that infinite. What an amazing vision, what an amazing experience. Just imagine, I'm putting this in your mind so that this becomes your goal, Just imagine, you don't need to do anything. Wherever you are right now, whatever it is that you're doing, it doesn't matter. But just staying put there, you go on expanding and become like the ocean. Now you start experiencing the infinite divinity in your place, within you and outside you. What a grand experience that is. Each and every one of you, you have the power to experience the infinite. But instead of doing the sadhana of the yogic approach and developing the capacity to penetrate, what you're doing is you're trying to seek the infinite externally. And even in that, there are very limited concepts. That is the reason why the consciousness is not expanding. So when it comes to acceptance, accommodativeness, now you accommodate not only people, as I told you last week, you accommodate all objects, you accommodate all situations. See, every situation which you're facing in life is trying to teach you something. It has the potential to take you to the next level, provided you apply these principles. So whatever situation you are right now in, just learn to accept that. It may be a problem also. Like the pandemic, was rampant in the last 1 year, or it could be some financial issue which you may be having, or it could be the death of a near and dear one, whatever it is. Now I accept that situation as it is, because that is what is the reality. Being like an ocean means not moving away from a reality. When you are living in the past is not real. Past is not real now. It was real at one point of time, but not right now. If you are constantly living in the future, means your mind is having too many anxieties of the future, then again you're moving away from reality. Right now, whatever the situation is, whatever it is that you're having, whomever you're moving with, this is what is a reality. I'm talking of externally. First you practice it outside. Then when you practice it within you, you will reach that which is truly, truly real. The real I. Realization means realization. Becoming one with that reality. So last week I told you, accepting people as they are. So similarly with objects also, whatever you have today, first learn to be happy with them. Then you can fix goals and you can acquire more things. There's nothing wrong with that. But if you are unhappy, if you are unable to accept whatever you have today, then you will never be peaceful. If you have a small car, now just become so peaceful with that. I have this small car with me and I'm so happy, I'm so peaceful. I accept it as a gift, given by nature. The moment you accept it, now you will start enjoying it thoroughly. Thereafter, as your financial situation improves, you may get a bigger car. And when you get a bigger car at that time, now I accept this car. I'm giving a very a gross example of a car so that you understand this principle. So like this, so many things you're having. It could be a house, it could be your own vehicle, it could be the comforts which you're having. The problem is, at any level, you are not able to accept whatever you're having. You're not happy with that. You're always grumbling, you're complaining. Oh, this is not okay, that is not okay. So I accept people, whomever I'm moving with. Similarly, I accept all the things which I'm having wholeheartedly. That will give you so much of peace, and it'll increase your efficiency in your action. And then when you act, you will be able to achieve your goals faster. Similarly, I accept all the situations. Whatever is happening to me today, that is what is a reality. So I accept it wholeheartedly. Once you accept and you become peaceful, thereafter, as I told you, you can assess and you can see how to make things better. That is, how to go on improving the situation. But if you are unable to accept, now your mind will become agitated, you will become stressed. And whenever your mind is stressed, you will not be able to think clearly. And when you can't think clearly, you cannot act properly, you cannot act efficiently. So you will not be able to progress in life. Say, especially in the management studies, they are studying about everything, managing so many things. But the primary focus of management should be to manage your own mind. If you cannot manage your own mind, then where is the question of managing other things? In the corporate world, they are constantly talking of how to manage stress, how to manage stress. This is the way. Stress, see, first of all, this word stress management itself is it's a limited concept. In the ancient wisdom, we talk of mastery, we are not satisfied with merely managing things. Today, people have compromised so much. They feel they can never come out of stress. So one person advocated, let's not try to remove stress because it is impossible. So let us learn to manage it. There itself, you have compromised. Your real potential remains untapped. So practice this acceptance in all aspects of the world. As I told you, kamaha means the external world, what is coming to you. So these are the three things: the people, and whatever things you're having today, and the various situations which you will be put in. So in all these three things, when you practice this great sadhana of acceptance, your mind will calm down. Your ability to face challenges, to handle any problems will increase. See, if you take Arjuna's case, the war was inevitable. So he was standing in the battlefield. His grandfather, his own cousins, his own guru in the sense Acharya, Dronacharya, who taught him archery, not spiritual guru, I'm talking of in the worldly art. He had learnt from him. He was also standing on the opponent side. And that is what bothered Arjuna. He said, how can I fight these people? But what Krishna is trying to tell him is, this is what the reality is. You are not fighting actually against individuals. You are fighting against unrighteousness. And they are all standing on the side of unrighteousness. You don't mean to harm them in any way. But if they are protecting unrighteousness, and if your goal is to protect righteousness, then this is what is a reality situation. So Arjuna, accept the situation as it is and do whatever is expected of you. Do your duty. As a warrior, you have a certain duty. Now do that to the best of your ability. This is what Krishna tells Arjuna. Actually, the next chapter, chapter 3, one of the aspects of Karma Yoga is this only. How to do your part effectively in the world without any complaints, without any grumbling. That is Karma Yoga. So, as the ocean remains unmoved, means become like the ocean, go on expanding. Now, another dimension of Samudram we'll see. The ocean has an amazing quality. That is what the scientists call as the heat capacity, That what do they mean by that? See, the ocean's heat capacity, they say, is more than the land, than the atmosphere. So, as a result, during summer, when it is very warm, the ocean actually gets warm very slowly. So the result is, it keeps the atmosphere quite cool. Now, when it is winter time, the ocean cools very slowly. So it keeps the atmosphere quite warm. Now, this is what they call as the heat capacity of the ocean. When you compare it with the heat capacity of, let us say, the land. Now, during summer, it gets, it warms very fast. During winter, it cools very fast. So, what do we understand from this? Irrespective of what is happening outside, the ocean adjusts itself and it chooses how to respond. Just because it is summer now, it doesn't get heated up very fast. Just because it's winter, it doesn't get cool very fast. It chooses its response. And it is very, very flexible also. So a Sthita Prajna is like the ocean, and one of the key qualities of a spiritually developed person is in his ability to respond to life. That is, respond to life by exercising his choice. So you should learn this difference. That is, when you respond to a situation out of choice and when you helplessly just merely react to a situation, they are two different things. When you respond in a weak way, when the situation overpowers you and you just follow the course, that is not a spiritual life. So as you do your sadhana, as you expand yourself, your ability to respond to situations by exercising your power of choice will increase. As a human being, you have been given the power of choice. Other creatures don't have that. They do have the power of choice, but the choice is limited. See, for example, there is a beautiful saying, about a tiger. There's a proverb in the Tamil language. It is said, "Puli pasittalum pullai tinnadu." Means even if it is very, very hungry, the tiger will not eat grass. Why? Because it's programmed in such a way. Within that framework, it may choose, let me now attack this deer and eat, let me now eat this. But the very capacity, the basic capacity to question, that choice is not given to a tiger. Similarly, any other creature you take, choices are given but within a certain framework. It is only a human being who has been given this power to choose without any framework. You can choose to devolve and become, to go down, to become worse, whatever worst thing a person, you can conceive, or you can use the same choice to evolve and become a Sthita Prajna. That spectrum, wide spectrum, no boundary at all, that is there for a human being. If you take an animal, there is a limitation in terms of choices. It's a pre-programmed life, As soon as a woodpecker comes out, now it starts picking. Throughout its life, it is only picking, nothing else. This is what we call as a pre-programmed life. A human being alone has the capacity to, go on devolving or go on evolving. That choice is yours. So whenever you face life, remember this, you have the choice to respond according to what you want. You are like the ocean. The problem is you are not in touch with the depth within you. So you are not aware that you are like the ocean. So the ocean chooses, now it is summer. So I am not going to allow the summer to influence me. What does it do? It warms slowly. That is the response which it chooses. Now it is winter. Doesn't mean now I'll have to become cold immediately. I will choose to cool in a very slow way. So whenever you face a challenge in life, supposing let's say a negative situation comes, now when you don't exercise this choice, you immediately get influenced by that situation. But through sadhana, when this power to respond in you starts getting activated, now you start dictating terms. If a person wants to insult you, that is his choice. But whether you should get affected by that or not actually is your choice. But problem is you don't exercise that choice of action at all. Choicelessly you are getting stressed today. It looks like that. But in spite of all that, what these great masters are saying is, it is not that there is no choice. There are choices, but you are not choosing to exercise that. You are not utilizing this great power which is being given to you. See, someone has asked this question, what is the difference between prarabdha and purushartha? Prarabdha means destiny. Purushartha means self-effort. Now, in some other context, when that context comes, when I will explain the prarabdha and purushartha in detail. But to put it in a nutshell, whatever comes to you in life is prarabdha, is destiny. Whatever happens. But how you respond to it is purushartha. Self-effort. That is in your hands. Even the prarabdha is in your hands only, because what comes to your life is based on your past karmas. We are not getting into that now. But as of now, what is destiny? Whatever is happening to in your life is destiny. Who created that and all that? As in when the context comes, I am giving that aspect of the wisdom. When you go on acquiring all these aspects, you will start getting a total picture. So what happens in life is prarabdha. Now how you face it is purushartha. Prarabdha means destiny. In simple, I am giving you a very simple translation. This is an answer to that person who has asked this question. Purushartha means self-effort. So there are big debates, which is true, prarabdha or purushartha and all this. There is nothing to debate. If you understand this wisdom in totality, you will find that there are no contradictions. So if a negative situation is coming to you today, that is your prarabdha, destiny. Now how you respond to that negative situation is your self-effort, purushartha. So you have the capacity of purushartha. So that we can see with respect to samudram, ocean. If summer is coming now, it is not sitting and complaining, oh, it has become warm. It chooses to respond in a different way. That is, I will warm up slowly. Similarly, when winter comes, the ocean is not doesn't start complaining. It again chooses how to respond. It is not only to negative things, even to positive things. Supposing you inherit a lot of wealth, that is your destiny, prarabdha. But now how you respond, what you do with that, that is self-effort. If you use the money to just become more egoistic, and if you're using it for all the wrong things, then you are actually creating a very negative future prarabdha, future destiny. But if you use the same money for good, to do good things, and that whatever you have received makes you very humble, then you are actually responding in a positive way. So your future prarabdha, your future destiny will be very positive. So this is a very, very powerful sadhana tip which you can get from this verse. Be like an ocean. Always choose your responses. See, every day morning you choose what to eat. Now this is what I want to have for breakfast. You choose what clothes to wear, right? And today I'll wear this this dress, this color. Even there people are very mechanical. But I'm saying this much you can understand. You can easily choose a dress. But what you need to understand is, just as you can choose your dress, you can choose your food. You have the capacity to choose every kind of response emanating from you. You can choose what to talk. You can choose how to talk. You can choose your moods. That is called rasa sadhana in the yogic language. Rasa means the emotion, the mood, So gaining mastery over that is a very, very important aspect of the spiritual growth. Just because a negative thing is happening doesn't mean now you will have to respond negatively. See, once you don't choose properly, then the ego will start influencing the mind, and it will naturally start reacting negatively to everything. Even if you get good things in life, you will react negatively. That's why I gave you the example. You get a lot of money. I know people who become very arrogant with money. And then when they lose all that money, do they humble down? No. Then they go into a mode of complaining. So whether you want to complain or whether you want to be grateful, it is your choice. Whether you want to be humble or whether you want to be arrogant, it is your choice. Whether you want to be agitated or whether you want to be calm, it is your choice. That line alone you will find it difficult to accept. That is why first I said the other two things and then slowly I slipped in this. See, whether you like it or not, whether your ego appreciates this or not, this is what is a fact. Just imagine, peace, happiness itself is a choice. That is what these great masters are saying. And when it becomes a choice, when you understand this great truth of life, thereafter you can choose to be happy under any circumstance. In the future, I will be giving you empowerment on happiness, At that time, once you get that empowerment, we'll be dealing with the power to choose. All these powers will be activated fully within you in that empowerment course. We will see. When the time comes, we will have that course. Different facets of happiness are there, like peace, purnatvam, completeness. So many things are there, So when you activate all that within you, when you get empowered, then it's a different quality of life which you can lead. So from this moment onwards, start choosing, start exercising your power of choice. That is how you can create your destiny. Destiny is not determined by some external forces. When you don't exercise your choice, then your destiny will be determined by external forces. People want to push past the buck, to someone outside. If nothing else, you say planets are responsible for my life. That person is responsible, this person. Nobody is responsible. You have allowed all these factors to influence your life. Now, what these great masters are giving you, the greatest gift is, techniques by which you can awaken this power to choose. Once you start exercising this power of choice as a human being, then slowly you will find that external things will not influence your life. You will start influencing others. You will start influencing situations. If an opportunity comes, you will know how to use that opportunity most effectively. If a difficulty comes, you will know how to convert it into an opportunity. See, you take Lord Krishna. It is a difficult situation for him because his goal was to establish righteousness. He had decided not to take up any arms. Now Arjuna was his main tool. He was the greatest warrior during his time. Now that person on whom the entire army was looking up to, everyone was depending on Arjuna, and Arjuna is in a pathetic situation. He had collapsed completely emotionally in the battlefield. It's a very tough situation. But what was Krishna's response to that? When we started off in the second chapter itself, we saw Krishna starts with a smile only. He chooses his response. And instead of grumbling about this, Now he uses the same situation to give the great truths. It is the Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita means a song of the Lord. What the great avatar gave, So he used the situation to give the ancient wisdom, the truths of life to entire humanity. This is what we call as converting a difficulty into an opportunity. Just imagine, Arjuna has collapsed. Now if Krishna also becomes very worried about that. He says, my God, no Arjuna, you will not fight, what will we do? No, can you imagine? See, when the moment I say that itself, you feel like laughing. That is not how Krishna will respond. Why? Because he is the infinite. So when you start doing your sadhana, you should absorb that energy. Let anything go wrong outside. It doesn't matter. As long as you are choosing positive responses, it is a question of time. Your destiny will change. That is why I always say, once you have come into this path of sadhana, into the yogic approach, now, don't worry about things like your horoscopes and all that. I'm not saying they are wrong. They are all predicting your past, the effect of your past actions. But when you do this higher sadhana, now you're creating a very powerful energy in the present, which can completely neutralize all your past and change your destiny for the better. That much of power you have. Okay, so we'll stop with this today. In the next session, I'll give you some more dimensions of the Samudram, and we'll also have to see the concept of Kama Kami which he has given. They are all very, very powerful concepts. They are not mere concepts, in the sense intellectual concepts, but they are powerful principles which you can practice in your life. So we'll be seeing all that. So before we do the meditation, today's meditation, I'll be installing all these thoughts which were given to you using the principle of Nididhyasana. So after that, when you reflect and start practicing, it will be easy for you. But before that, I'll take up one or two questions which have come. Now, this has been asked by Umesh Paranyape. Umesh ji has put it in the YouTube comment section. Dear Yogishri, it has been now 5th week in a row where I did not post any expression in the comment section, although I have listened to all Sunday discourses. I was able to understand the Sunday Gita discourses, but somehow my expression was locked. See, I want others also to note these words, because he has used beautiful words. He says his expression was locked. That's a powerful way of putting it. Writing the understanding mechanically was not happening. But then it opened floodgate on last Sunday, 14th November. I suddenly realized I was caught up with the expectation of others. Others' opinion mattered to me most. I was caught up with external analysis. It went straight down so deeply that my mind calmed down. That is the effect of absorbing this wisdom. Your mind will calm down, So the analogy of all types of water merging with a calm sea has struck me very much. Yes, expressing is required to be done, and this comment section is a platform made available by yourself to everyone. But I need your guidance on continuing the expressing, though it is mechanical. Sashtang Naman, Umesh. So it's a nice question Umesh ji has asked. This will be very useful for all the sadhaks. See, now in this comment section asking you to express is a sadhana, but expression is not limited only to this. As I told you, we in this yogic approach never restrict the sadhana to any one thing. See, supposing you are driving a car. Now I will give you tips by which you can convert that into sadhana. If you are a doctor, I would give you tips by which you can convert that very profession of being in the medical field into karma yoga, into sadhana. Supposing you say, no, I can cook very well, how to convert that into sadhana? So similarly, every aspect, the YouTube has the comment section. I have not put anything, it is already there. Now instead of using that in a inconsequential way, I gave this suggestion that utilize that platform to start expressing yourself positively. And that expression can be in the form of writing down your points, which will also help you to build clarity, or to express your gratitude. Anyway, it is something. Now the idea was not to merely put down something there, but it is to create a transformation within you. So as I told you, sadhana is not restricted merely to that. If you're listening to this, I always say, now drop all your preconceived notions and absorb whatever is being given to you. Then it becomes a sadhana. If when we started these online sessions, initially many people had the complaint, oh, we are missing the sessions in the auditorium. Now accept that as a reality. The permission is not given, which means we cannot have those sessions. Now what is the best we can do? Online. Now once they started doing that, applying that aspect of sadhana, now the same people who complain, now they are saying, no, these online lessons have their own, online sessions have their advantage. It's like talking, we are getting a very personal, more personal experience. So it's almost like one-to-one. So some advantage is there even in this, isn't it? So every situation should be converted into a sadhana. The only thing is, as you have mentioned the word, my expression was locked. That's a beautiful way of saying. See, you're meant to flower so beautifully. You're meant to blossom fully. But what happens is the karmas prevents you from blooming. That is why you feel the expressions are blocked. When you say your expressions are blocked, it is not merely your expressions, it is your entire personality which is blocked. So how do you solve that? Expressing mechanically is not the ideal way of expressing, but it is better than not expressing at all. Please understand this. If you expect yourself to do everything in a perfect way, unless and until I am able to do something in a perfect way, I will never do it. If you say that, you will not be able to do anything in life. So first is a state of not expressing, that is inability to express. That's what you're calling it as expression is locked, Then is you express but in a mechanical way. That is a next higher level. And then the third level is you start refining your expression. It is no longer in a mechanical way. You start bringing in more purity, more sincerity, more clarity. So all those things you will start doing. So I can tell you one thing, the moment you're saying my expression is mechanical, it means now you started the process of coming out of that mechanical way of functioning. If it is 100% mechanical, there will be no awareness. You will just be doing something like a zombie. Even when you're writing points, it will just be mechanically done. There will be no awareness at all. But the moment you're saying, I think I'm doing this mechanically, what does it mean? You're breaking that chain. Now it is no longer mechanical. This is the first step. You've already started, there is started happening within you. So what do you need to do? Nothing. Continue with your expression, not merely in this comment section. That is a practice ground for you, but even in other areas of your life. If you practice here sincerely, it will open up your personality so much. You will find a lot of difference in other aspects. See, you can take up any aspect of life and convert it into sadhana. That is what the great masters are trying to teach you. And once you do sadhana with something, the benefits of that will be experienced in all the aspects of life. That is the beauty. So how do you overcome that? Already the process has started. You've become aware. So two things. First is coming out of the total tamas, which is your personality being restricted. For some reason you're afraid to express. You're not willing to express. So coming out of that is the first step. The second is removing the mechanical nature. That will come as you build your bhavana. Right, start with writing some point which inspires you. If there is no point, then at least say thank you. Something which comes from your heart. See, I don't want to tell too much about this, because then that itself will condition your mind. It should be natural. So whatever you feel like expressing, start. Now then you go on refining. As you start the process, you will begin to become aware of the various shortcomings. Sometimes you will find that, oh, I've written 10 points but nothing is clear. Suddenly after a few weeks, it will strike you. Then how do I refine it? So all these will add more value to your sadhana. The result of this will be in the other areas of life. When you are expressing yourself, you will find a big difference. You will not unnecessarily restrict yourself in life. You will not go overboard also. You will learn to maintain that balance. Okay, so other questions we'll take up later. So now we'll do the meditation. Sit in a relaxed way. Keep your spinal cord erect. Tomorrow we are starting the Prana Tattva. So I've been preparing you for so long. So today it is important for you to keep your spinal cord straight. Gently close your eyes. Do deep breathing. As you are breathing deeply, feel the divine vibrations. with every breath, I am becoming more and more deep. I am deep and vast like the ocean, Samudram. I am in a state of all acceptance. I have the capacity to accommodate anything and remain peaceful. I have the power of choice. From this moment onwards, I choose to respond positively. I choose to do my sadhana and evolve spiritually. I have infinite powers within me. Offer your gratitude to God Supreme. Offer your gratitude to your Guru and all the holy masters. Slowly come back. Wriggle your fingers, your toes, rub your palms together to create a warmth. Cup your eyes with your palms. Gently rub your eyes, cheeks, forehead, top of the head, back of the head and neck. Slowly open your eyes. Welcome back. It was a very deep session which we had. Now you have so much of powers within you. You have the power to choose what you want. You have the power to choose your responses in life. It is an irony that all these powers are lying dormant within you. And you're so stressed about whatever problems you're facing. So from this moment onwards, start developing that inner strength. And that inner strength comes from exercising this power of choice which has been given to you. How many times in a day should I exercise the power of choice, sir? Supposing you ask me. I would say every second of your life. Okay. So tomorrow is the Prana Tattva Level 1 Empowerment course. We're starting that. It's going to be very powerful. So I have received instructions from the higher in my meditation to give you more. So even though we said that the session will be from 5:30 a.m. to 7:30 a.m. Indian Standard Time, it can extend a little more. So it can even go up to 2.5 hours also. I take it as a gift from the higher, powerful kriyas, the breathing kriyas and all will be taught. You will be given enough guidance and practice. So I think all of you would have received the certain important rules. So go through that rules and ensure that you follow all that. Ashish Garg has sent a question that he and his wife have registered, and should we watch them separately or together? Empowerment sessions alone should be watched alone only. Sunday sessions you can watch it as a group, but empowerment sessions you watch alone, let your partner watch alone, because a lot of healing will happen, a lot of release also may happen. So you should be free to be able to release certain things. And there should be no distraction, If you're sitting with somebody else, your mind will get distracted or they may get distracted. So we should avoid all that. This is a personal relationship which you're having with the higher, personal relationship with the master. You may join, you may belong to the same family. That is at the worldly level. In spirituality, your relationship, you, God, and your relationship with the Guru. That's all. Even if you're attending as a husband and wife, husband is separately a student, the wife is separately a student. So don't mix that up. And I'm sure the other rules also you would have read and you will be following that. High-speed internet connection is very much required. And every day do a little bit of exercises, half an hour at least, to distribute the energy, because so much of energy is going to be given to you. Incredible healing and all the prana, vayu, sharira is going to be awakened. So you will get transformed. It is a process of transformation. And attend these sessions in an empty stomach. That is why I have kept it early morning 5:30, but that is Indian Standard Time. As far as people who are living in other countries, anyway the videos will be kept for 20 hours because of the time zone differences. So you choose a time which is conducive for you with empty stomach. That is very important, because the deep the breathing empowerments and all which will be given is more effective when the stomach is empty. So if you can time it early in the morning, that is the best. But one important thing is, don't split the sessions, the lecture you see in the morning, meditation in the evening, or vice versa and all that. That is not good. So commit yourself for these 22 days. Set aside some 2.5 hours for this very, very sacred sadhana. You're also lucky to be getting this empowerment just like that. So make use of that properly. If you want to take a bio break just before the meditation and all that, you can always pause and you can take a short break and come back. But don't split the sessions and watch. And remember, watch the empowerment meditation only once. It is being kept for 20 hours so that people from different time zones have to watch that. But don't watch them more than once. The lecture part is okay if you want to note down some points and all that. But even there, the healing will be very powerful. So you have to be careful. Overdosage is also not good. So follow whatever instructions are being given to you implicitly. And no need to do your yoga sankirtan or any other sadhana during these 22 days. Whatever will be given to you is going to be so powerful. So just surrender, become like a child, and enjoy the whole process. And whenever you have any questions or anything, you can always send by email. The 22nd day, I'll be answering all the questions, and we'll also be having the final meditation to conclude, the balancing meditation, a lot of healing also. Okay. So, thank you very much. We'll see in the next session. As far as the Sundays are concerned, that will be on. So, the Prana Tattva course is also structured in such a way that you will attend for 6 days and then a rest day, which will be Sunday, sadhana. Rest means in yogic approach, it is a different sadhana. That is what is rest. Some of you may say I am being too strict. Actually, I am being very lenient. If you directly contact the Himalayan masters, their level of strictness you will not be able to take, Little bit of effort, that tapas you need to do. And then again 6 days, and then after that rest day means Sunday session. So the Sunday sessions will anyway be on. This sadhana will continue. So that is going to, the Prana Tattva level 1 is going to create tremendous impact and transformation. Okay. So any other question you have, you can send by mail. Everything will be answered. So thank you very much. Hari Om.